Syria's new government signed a deal with the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces to merge forces. That's according to the Syrian presidency Monday, releasing video showing interim Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa and SDF commander Mazloum Abdi signing the deal. It's a major step in Sharaa's goal to unite Syria, which had seen 14 years of conflict and the collapse of Bashar al-Assad's regime in December. The agreement included a complete end of hostilities and for SDF-controlled civilian and military institutions, which include an airport, oil and gas fields, to become part of the Damascus administration. In the northeastern city of Komishlu, there were celebrations after the deal. Cars full of cheering people cruised through the streets in early Tuesday.
The people needed an agreement like this. The world is tired of displacement and war, so we are happy with this agreement because it will bring peace to a new democratic Syria.
The US-backed SDF has been in conflict with Turkey-backed armed groups in northern Syria for years. That conflict has rumbled on since Assad was toppled. There was no immediate comment on the deal from Turkey, which is a close ally of Sharaa. Analysts say SDF leaders see Monday's agreement as a hedge against the risk of the Trump administration suddenly withdrawing US forces, which have helped SDF counter the Islamic State in Syria for a decade. The accord came at another critical moment. Syrian authorities face an insurgency in the coastal region of western Syria by loyalist remnants of Assad's regime. Violence has spiraled in the past week, and there were reports of large numbers of civilians of Assad's Alawite sect killed in sectarian reprisals. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Sunday condemned the killings. In a Reuters interview Monday, Sharaa said mass killings of Alawites were a threat to his mission to unite Syria. He promised to punish those responsible, including his own allies, if necessary.
Fears that uncertainty over trade tariffs will trigger a recession gripped the U.S. stock market on Monday. A Reuters poll showed 91% of economists see higher recession risks due to President Donald Trump's shifting trade policies.
They'll be met with the exact same tariff.
But the White House pushed back on talk of a recession on Monday. The director of its National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett, said there were many reasons to be optimistic about the U.S. economy, despite concerns about inflation and predictions of a contraction in GDP in the first quarter. He argued U.S. tax cuts would boost the economy and said Trump's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China were already bringing manufacturing and jobs back to the U.S. Hassett and other White House officials have also repeatedly bashed the economy inherited from former President Joe Biden. But when Trump took office, GDP growth had largely exceeded trend for 2 years, consumer spending was strong, and unemployment was still near historic lows. Since then, several indicators have pointed to a softening trend, and a monthly survey of U.S. households out on Monday showed that Americans expressed more pessimism about their financial situations. Meanwhile, early economic data suggests the U.S. economy could contract in the first quarter of the year. Hassett called it a very temporary phenomenon. Trump himself declined to predict whether the U.S. could face a recession in a Fox News interview on Sunday. On Monday, economists at Goldman Sachs cut their forecast for U.S. growth this year and raised their forecast for inflation.
Russian forces advanced further in their efforts to retake the Kursk region on Monday, threatening to encircle thousands of Ukrainian soldiers, just as Kyiv prepared for talks with top U.S. diplomats in Saudi Arabia. This video, released on Saturday by Ukraine's air assault forces, is said to show Ukrainian artillery fire targeting Russian special forces, who crept for miles through a gas pipeline to surprise Ukrainian troops holding Russian territory near Syria. Reuters was able to verify the location and that a gas pipeline runs underground there. This video, said to show Russian troops inside the tunnel, was posted on social media. In it, the soldiers reference March 8th and that they're heading towards Syria, though the date and location were not fully verifiable. Russian forces captured 3 more settlements in the area on Sunday after using the pipeline. By encircling Ukrainian soldiers, they aim to force them either to flee or to surrender in western Russia. Ukraine's air assault forces said in a post accompanying the video that enemy losses were high around Syria. Reuters could not independently verify that. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky was heading to Saudi Arabia for talks at a critical time for Kyiv. It will be the first official meeting between US and Ukrainian officials since a disastrous encounter between Zelensky and President Donald Trump in the Oval Office.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
Zelensky is expected to meet the Saudi Crown Prince, but has said he will not attend the talks with US negotiators, instead sending top officials including his chief of staff and foreign and defence ministers. They're expected to focus on a bilateral minerals deal and how to end the war. Trump is pressing for a swift end to the conflict and has upended US policy by pausing military aid to Ukraine and engaging directly with Moscow, raising fears among European leaders that Ukraine will lose the war.
Thousands of flights cancelled and over 500,000 people hit on Monday as German airport workers staged a major 24-hour strike in a dispute about pay. The operator of Frankfurt Airport, Germany's busiest, said no passenger flights would depart from there on Monday, and some delays and cancellations could roll over into Tuesday. Heinrich Nerpfler was a stranded passenger.
We had to leave Switzerland a day early and then spend the night here in Frankfurt. And now we're waiting to check in at another airport. And I think it's a shame that a strike is called at such short notice.
The strike, called by the Verdi Union on Friday, impacts 13 airports across the country, including Munich, Berlin and Düsseldorf. The union escalated action after staging several walkouts last month. Matthias Vernemer is the Verdi Union spokesperson.
The airports are part of the public sector, and we have the collective bargaining round for the public sector with over 2.5 million employees. The colleagues simply want to see an offer for the third round of negotiations in order to strive for better working conditions and higher wages.
Verdi is demanding an 8% wage increase, or at least an increase of $380 more per month. That's as well as higher bonuses and additional time off. Employers have rejected the demands as unaffordable. Negotiations are due to continue later this month.
With respect to President Trump, I'm not yet Prime Minister. His interlocutor is Prime Minister Trudeau, and I look forward to the opportunity. We will. As I said, I just spoke with the Prime Minister at length on issues around the transition. It'll be quick. We'll be coming back to you soon. The good news is that you will be seeing probably more of me than you want, and you will have other opportunities, and we'll be making an announcement on that. Exactly.
What did you tell caucus today?
What did I tell caucus today? So this is important. The first thing, I went to caucus today because you start as you mean to go on. And we are a Liberal team, and so it's incredibly important for me to hear directly from the members of caucus the concerns of Canadians on the ground, their priorities. As I said last night, they're the voices of their communities and they're the conscience of the party. There's tremendous energy in that group. We know this is a crucial time for our country. We're united to serve Canadians, and we will build this country.
Greenland's parliamentary election on March 11th is seen by many residents as the most critical in the island's history. A semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, independence has become a key campaign theme after U.S. President Donald Trump expressed his interest in acquiring the island.
I think this is one of the most important elections we've ever had, or that we'll vote in.
Donald Trump is a character right now that I think the fewest people in the world want to be involved with them.
Denmark's ties with the island have been strained after revelations of colonial mistreatment of Greenlanders. While Trump's interest has spurred Denmark to amend the relationship, surveys show the majority of Greenland's population of 57,000 support independence, and some locals see the election as a chance to secede. However, views differ on the timing and the potential impact on living standards. Denmark contributes just under $1 billion annually to the local economy. Trump reiterated his interest in his recent address to Congress and in a social media post on Monday.
And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland.
But a recent poll showed 85% of Greenlanders do not wish to join the United States, with nearly half seeing Trump's interest as a threat. Liv Aurora Jensen is from the left-leaning socialist Inuit Ataqatigiit Party, which rules in a coalition with the Siamut Party.
So maybe we have to turn to Canada and Europe to have collaborations, but it all depends on what he's saying to us and how he treats us, because we are Greenlanders and we don't want to be Danes and we certainly don't want to be Americans.
Vivian Motzfeldt from the Siumut party says Greenland is not for sale, but is open for business.
So if he wants to have more cooperation with Greenland, then he must talk to us. But how he talks, I will say, you don't talk to friends like that. If President Trump wants to be a friend of Greenland, then he needs to change his rhetoric.
The left-wing Nalarak, led by Pelle Broberg, is the largest opposition party and strongly advocates for a swift transition to full independence.
But we also want prosperity and security and safety for our country. And we can see the angle from the other parties is that we have nobody to work with in case of the independence.
Election polls are scarce, and political analysts said it is not clear whether voters will gain back the ruling left-wing-led coalition.
Jet fuel is pouring into the sea off northeast England after a tanker carrying fuel for the US military was struck by a container ship Monday. Two maritime security sources said so far there was no sign of malicious activity. Ships with firefighting capabilities, lifeboats, and a helicopter arrived at the scene Monday morning. Britain's Coast Guard said 36 people were rescued, but one person remained missing. The crash happened off the port city of Hull at 10 a.m. Shipping industry sources say the waterway was busy with traffic running from the ports along Britain's northeast coast to the Netherlands and Germany. The tanker, called the Stena Immaculate, is operated by U.S. logistics group Crowley. They said the vessel was anchored when it was struck by the Portuguese-flagged cargo ship Solong. The crash happened in daylight conditions. Speaking to Reuters, oceanographer Dr. Simon Boxall said it seemed avoidable.
Now, there were reports of fog earlier, but modern ships have anti-collision systems, they have radar and so on. The Stena ship could have done very little about it. It couldn't have moved away because it was at anchor. It wouldn't have had time to respond by the time it got its engines warmed up and everything else. But the Solong should have avoided it, and it would be down to incompetence on behalf of Solong. There is no reason why, in the 21st century, two ships should collide.
The Solong's Hamburg-based owner, Ernst Russ, said both vessels sustained significant damage from the crash and the subsequent fire. A maritime data provider's report said the Solong was carrying containers of alcohol and sodium cyanide, a toxic chemical used mainly in gold mining. A U.S. military spokesperson told Reuters on Monday the tanker Stena Immaculate had been on a short-term charter to the U.S. Navy's Military Sealift Command. It was part of a U.S. government program designed to supply the armed forces with fuel when required. An insurance specialist said the pollution risk was lower than if the tanker had been carrying crude oil, but that would depend on the number of tanks breached and the severity of the fire. A spokesperson for the activist network Greenpeace said any environmental impact would depend on factors, including the amount and type of oil carried by the tanker, the fuel carried by both ships, and how much of that, if any, had entered the water.